you're looking to purchase a home, get started in real estate investing, or start house hacking here in Colorado Springs, you came to the best place to get started, because we are going to talk about all the best ways and strategies to start investing and purchase real estate here in the Colorado Springs metro area. My name is Tanner. I'm a real estate agent, investor, and house hacker here in Colorado Springs. I have 3 properties myself that I have converted from house hacking into long-term rentals as well as short-term rentals. Today we're going to have one of our guest speakers from our real estate meetup present and give a little speech about what they do in the real estate industry, whether it's different types of lending opportunities, their story of how they got started in real estate, as well as different strategies that would work well here in Colorado Springs. The meetup is not just for house hackers, it is for all types of real estate investors. Whether you're just getting started or you've been in the industry for quite some time, all is welcome to come to our real estate meetup. We host the second and fourth Thursday every month at the Trinity Brewing Company. If you want to get updates or find out more information about that, send me a message. We are also on meetup.com as well as Facebook. We do have a Facebook group that is perfect for any one that wants to connect with other investors. And if you want to follow up with, hey, I need a contractor, you can just ask a question to the Facebook group. I hope you enjoyed this guest speaker. If you want to know about all things Colorado Springs real estate, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more future content coming your way.
Well, I just mainly want to talk about co-living today. I think it's a great strategy, especially in this town. At this time, just overall, it's really good right now for sure. And I think it's something that'll just get better, more popular in the future. So a little bit about me. This is me and my wife. She's over there. I'm looking pretty silly, but she looks a lot better than I do in this picture for sure. But we live, work, and invest here in Colorado Springs. So like Tanner said, I'm a nuclear rocket scientist. She's a biochemist. But really, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to use this strategy or any strategy in real estate. It's really not that hard. One of the easiest parts of my day. And like Tanner says, it's not rocket science, it's just real estate. So I definitely believe in that. It's not that tough. We started investing here in May of 2022. So it really hasn't been that long. Just a little bit over 2 years. And so in that time, we got started house hacking, just like a lot of you guys probably have or are trying to or want to at some point. We bought our first house hack, got good at renting it out by the room. We lived in the basement and rented out rooms upstairs. Moved a year later and bought another house hack. Easy peasy, nothing too crazy, just kind of did it again. And at that point, we were pretty dialed with our systems, right? There's a lot of management that goes into co-living, so we'd really nailed it down at that point. And so at that point, we started bringing in capital partners to buy more. So we bought 3 since then over like the last 7 months with capital partners, and including this one that we're standing in here right now. So right now we're up to 5 properties and 33 residents. 95% of that is co-living. There's a couple of midterm units in there, but for the most part, it's co-living. So that's really our bread and butter. And yeah, they're all in Colorado Springs. Like I said, I think this is one of the best markets that you can use this strategy in. So definitely recommend doing it here. Okay, so co-living strategy, super high level definition, right? It's a strategy that you usually use with single family houses. So typically you have a 5-bedroom house, 6-bedroom house, 7-bedroom house, and you're just renting out each bedroom to an individual. So it's not like, there's one master lease and there's 6 or 7 people on it. It's a lease for this room, a lease for this room, and a lease for this room. People also call it like room by room rental or rent by room. It's all the same thing, but that's kind of the high level. Okay, so why is co-living working now? Why do I think it's going to continue working into the future? So you guys definitely can't see this. There's a chart on the screen here, and basically it's showing the median income in Colorado Springs, and it's showing the median rent for the typical rental here in Colorado Springs. And what you can see is that rents are increasing. This is all the way up to 2022. I didn't have any data after that. And then you can see that income is increasing as well, but affordability overall is just getting worse because rents are increasing faster than income is increasing. So this is just for the average family sort of situation. So does anyone listen to Dave Ramsey or any of these other financial folks? Anybody know like what they recommend for how much of your income you should spend on your housing?
30%.
30%. Don't talk. Someone else is going to say it.
I looked up for a second.
Yeah, okay. So typically folks recommend that you spend 30% on your rent or your mortgage or whatever, just your housing. So you can see, I was actually surprised by this. But for the average household in Colorado Springs right now, or in 2022, it was like 27% or so. So the average household is actually within range there. But the point that I want to make here is that affordability is getting worse because that is increasing over time. So like in 2015, folks here were spending 22% of their income on housing. Now it's up to 27. So the average household is actually still in a financially healthy situation, but that is for the average household. So if we move along here, you can see that this blue line down here is that line that I was just showing you for like the average household. But if we start to look at the more disadvantaged like type folks, this line here is actually the 1-bedroom apartment rent over the minimum wage income here in Colorado Springs. So this is definitely the extreme, right? It's the folks that are making the least, and they're going for the cheapest rental because of that. But you can see housing is absolutely not affordable, not sustainable. It really puts them in a bad position because they're at 65%, of their income is going towards their rent. So those are the folks that are really in need of help, and that's kind of where these sort of room rentals tend to come in. And so to put it into kind of a different perspective here, what this table here is, it's kind of answering the question, what income do you need to be financially healthy for different rental types? So for a 1-bedroom apartment, if you want to stay at that 30% rent to income ratio there, you need to be making $58,000 a year. So, right, that's the cheapest rental, typical rental that's here in town is like a 1-bedroom type apartment. And you have to be making $58,000 to comfortably afford that. So if we take a look here to rent a room, our typical rooms are going for like $770 a month. So in that case, you only have to make $30,000 a year. And so basically what this is saying is that if you make less than $58,000 a year, if you make 57, if you make 30, if you make 25, you cannot afford a 1-bedroom apartment and still have extra income to, pay your utilities, pay your groceries, go out and have fun, save and invest your money. You're kind of going to be stagnant unless you're in this financial, healthier situation. So you can see here, it's not exactly coincidence, but the minimum wage income, if you were to work full time, is almost spot on with that room rental. So if they're renting anything else, they are in a very bad situation where it's going to be really tough to get ahead in life. And so how many of those folks are there here in Springs? So if you look at this chart, again, I know all you guys in the back can't exactly see, but about 25% of Colorado Springs population makes less than $60,000. So that's a fourth of the folks out there that it would be tough for them to afford the 1-bedroom type apartment. So that's half of our renter pool that we have in our portfolio for these sort of rooms. Half of them are these less than $58,000 a year folks. So this is a strategy that really helps them out and gives them that alternative. And then the other half of our rental portfolio of our tenants is made up by military members. So right, these are folks that are usually enlisted, so like E1, E6, somewhere in there. In Colorado Springs, we have Peterson Space Force Base, we have Schriever, and we have Fort Carson. Those are kind of our biggest ones that we draw tenants from. There's the academy too, but they usually have to live on base, so that's not a huge one for us. But that makes up the other half of our tenants, and so they, on average, bring in like $54,000 a year with their salary, housing, clothing, and food allowances. So again, they're under that $57,000 a year. And there's about 20,000 people in Springs that are military and they're E1 to E6. So that basically provides like 120,000 people in Springs that need a rental that does not readily exist, right? There's not a lot of folks doing rent by room. Okay, so that's one reason that it's really good right now. Affordability is decreasing. There's a lot of folks here that can't afford rentals. The other big reason that it's good, particularly right now, is there's some legislative wind that is really leaning towards co-living in a positive way. So most states have some sort of law that says something like a single family house is 6 unrelated people or less. There's usually some law like that. 4 people, 5 people, 6 people. And there's been some legislation in a few states already that totally removed those occupancy caps, mainly just to help out with the affordability issue. So, for example, Washington State was the first one in 2020. They removed those limits. So basically they were saying, hey, we know rent's expensive. If you guys need to put 6 people in a house to make things affordable, awesome. You have the freedom to do that now. But a lot of states don't allow for that. Oregon followed up in 2021, and then actually 2 months ago, Colorado followed suit. So Governor Polis signed a bill that did the exact same thing, removed occupancy limits. So now you could have 10 people in a house, 5 people in a house, 6 people in a house, whatever it is to make the housing affordable, and it makes it a good investment property for you at the same time. You now have the freedom to do that. And yeah, so I think that if you compare this strategy to something like short-term rentals, which are great and they often cash flow, but you guys probably hear a lot about legislative issues that are kind of starting to occur with these short-term rentals as far as legality goes in certain states and cities where they're starting to not allow them. I don't see co-living really going that way. It's more, if anything, the municipalities probably want cheap housing for their locals before they want to provide housing for tourists. Like that's just kind of the way that it trends. So I think legally, co-living is in a really good spot, especially in Colorado right now. Okay, so any questions about all of the economic data or like why co-living is good right now before I dive into kind of the specifics of the strategy?
Yeah. What about if they don't pay?
If they don't pay. So you can still evict, just like a traditional rental. I'll say with 33 tenants, we have not had to evict yet. Honestly, I think the main reason is, the day that they're late, we send them an email, saying, blah, 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 you're late. And then there's a part in there that says, just so you know, in our rental portal, you can pay with a credit card. Usually that gets everyone to pay pretty much immediately because we're like, if you don't, eviction starts on this day, whatever. So that usually gets most folks to, but otherwise you can evict just like any other sort of rental. I don't know how hard it is because we haven't done it.
Back of that, what about the latest legislation about renewals?
Yeah, so
I'm curious.
Yep. So if you screen right, you don't have to worry about trying to kick someone out, right? That's like the best answer. But otherwise, do you remember the specifics about that? It's like you have to give 90-day notice or something.
Yeah, the latest is that I forgot what they call it, but basically without cause, like you are required, like you just can't tell somebody, even though, or do you do month to month or do you have long term?
Yeah, so they're 6 months, but then they go month to month.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Does that help? Do you know if that helps you overcome that?
I think we're still subject to that law, I think. I mean, honestly.
30 days. It's a 30 days. Instead of 10 days notice, it's 30 days.
So I think it's 90 now. I've heard it's 90. You guys have heard that?
Then you have to go through mediation.
Yeah.
That's
So
another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm super annoying, so if you want to hire me and you have squatters,
Yeah. So I think, really, of course, that does take away power from the landlord. But in reality, I mean, I can't think of a reason that I would need to kick someone out for like not one of those reasons. Like, yeah, I mean, it takes power away and whatever. But I mean, the reasons we're going to kick them out is if they're not paying, if they're actually causing issues at the property. And I think one of the stipulations that they have in there is like if they're breaking, portions of the lease. Right. And there's definitely parts of the lease that say cleanliness, like whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so you got an out, if you will, if you really have to.
Yeah.
You got some technicalities.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But camera over there to watch them?
What's that?
Oh,
yeah, no cameras. So that would be the tough piece, would be proof and something like that. I'll get into some of that later, though. There's some things that you can do to really keep some of those issues at bay with this strategy. So, yeah, great question.
Though. You just do a single person, not a family.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep, exactly. Any other questions?
Yeah, Miller, real quick, and if you're going to get into it later, don't worry about it.
Yep.
But you mentioned that your leases are individual leases.
Yes. Yep.
From the lending side, if you're looking to scale, that typically is a hiccup for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Are you going to go into that more?
No, so good question. So I will now. Yeah. So when we bought a good example of this, we bought our first property, right? We house hacked it. We occupied 2 rooms in the basement, and then we rented out 3 upstairs. When we were going to our second one, that issue did come up with lending. They brought up, hey, usually we need a 12-month lease to help offset your DTI, basically, to show that you're bringing in more income, that rental is going to be covered before you move to your new property, so that you don't have to pay for both of these properties as part of your DTI. So it just kind of helps you cover a portion of it. What our lender did, I don't know how kosher this is, but he said that they can accept multiple leases. They just have to be 12-month leases, is what he said. So it's okay that we had 3. One showed $800, one showed $700, one showed $900. That was fine. But the fact that they were 6 months hurt us, until he just kind of winked and was like, you know, you can write whatever lease end date you want to in there. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that we did that. I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying I've heard that from some folks. So, but, depends on your risk tolerance and whatever.
We ran into that same issue.
Yeah.
And we had a friend that was a property manager that we asked if he would be okay being the master lease of the property that we owned. So he signed the 12-month lease.
Yeah.
And then we could use that with the lender.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I have heard of folks go into the existing, renters in the house and asking them to like sign this lease that's a master lease, whatever, that has this 12-month term and like this total amount. And then they just tell them like, hey, like we'll probably void this afterwards, whatever. And if you're good friends, like if you know the folks in your house, they might be fine with that. So there's ways around it. Just got to get a little creative. Yeah.
So why not you just do 12 months lease to begin with?
Yeah.
Occupancy?
So we could do that. I think it would limit our renter pool a little bit. Like these folks tend to be not as transient as a short-term renter, but a lot of them are here for 6 months and they're going to be deployed, or they're here for 6 months with plans to get financially on their feet and then go do their own thing. So I think not many of them want to stay for 12 months. It's usually 6 to 12, somewhere in there is how long they stay. Yeah.
Do you price accordingly?
What's that?
Do you price accordingly? If somebody says, hey, I think I could commit to 8-12 months.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough renter demand. Like even if they do move out, we'll probably have someone like relatively shortly. So yeah, we don't adjust it based on that.
Do you lose money when they move out, or you place somebody in right away?
Yeah, we try to get them in as quickly as possible, of course. Our quickest turnover has been like 0 days in between, and our longest has been like probably a month and a half. So, but it probably tends towards the average of that, like 2 to 3 weeks, typically. Yeah. All right, I'm going to move on. We can do some more questions later, though. So deep dive here. Right, there's pros and cons with this strategy, like any strategy. Some of the pros here, I really think it is a win-win-win scenario, which is tough to find in life, very tough to find in business, right? Usually somebody's getting screwed over. So in this case, I really don't think that's the case. Right, the owners are winning. We're getting double, triple the income by using this strategy, so we're cash flowing a lot more. The residents are winning because they're getting this, if you do it right, this awesome, form of housing that's cheap and mostly all-inclusive. So that's a good thing for the residents as well. And then the city wins as well because, like I said, this isn't a product that's offered in the city. There's no cheap housing in Springs, in Denver, in Seattle. It just doesn't exist in a lot of these sort of cities. So we're really providing something that's, super important to folks. Another pro here is vacancy absorption. So, right, imagine or maybe some of you folks do rent short-term rentals and mid-term rentals and traditional long-term rentals. You only have one income source, and it's that single tenant on that property. So if they, whenever they do move out, that period of vacancy hurts a lot with that sort of strategy. You're dipping into your reserves to pay for the mortgage, pay for the utilities, all that sort of stuff. Whereas with this particular strategy, our income is kind of fractionalized because we have 6, 7, whatever different sources of income. So like right now, we have a property that has 2 vacancies. And so instead of pulling in like $7,000 a month, we're pulling in like $5,000 a month. Okay, that's less cash flow, but we're still paying the mortgage, still paying utilities. We don't have to dip into reserves. We have it if we need it, but you don't need it as often with this strategy. Some of the cons, the biggest one, if I were to say that there's one issue with the strategy, it's definitely the management intensity. right? You're not renting to one family. When you buy a house, you're not looking for one lease. You're looking for 6 leases all at once. So a lot of work goes into that as far as paperwork, listing, talking to potential residents. Definitely a lot more work goes in there. And then it's a little bit less work once the house is filled up because, now maybe you deal with a maintenance request and that sort of thing, but you don't have a lot of turnovers. It's every 6 months or 10 months or 12 months or whatever. Whereas like with short-term rentals, I think there's less work in finding the tenant, right? Airbnb is there, you can get folks in pretty easy, but you do have more turnover type work there. So different type of work, but yeah, definitely management intensive. A little bit higher startup costs. We usually spend like $5,000 on furnishings. And then lastly, ordinances. So not an issue in Colorado Springs anymore, but can be. Yeah.
Is that furnishings? You talking about common area share or
Yeah.
the bedroom?
Yep. So we furnish all the shared areas. So living room, kitchen, any shared type bathrooms. But the bedrooms, the tenants furnish themselves. So we actually found that there were more people looking for unfurnished rooms than furnished rooms. And I think it's just because a lot of folks already have their own bed and their own dresser and whatever. So, if we were furnished, we'd be less appealing because they'd have to go find a storage, shed or whatever to put their stuff in. So just the common areas.
Do you have a specific ROI percentage that you try to get?
Yep. So we target 12% for, if you're house hacking, it should be higher, but I'll get to some numbers later and that'll be in there, but we do target 12 for like these pure investment properties. Yeah. Okay. So resident issues. This is the first thing that folks usually bring up. We're like, hey, we have a co-living house, 8 people live there. People are like, oh my goodness, that must be terrible. They must fight, somebody must be a slob, like all that sort of stuff. And it's a valid concern. I think it makes sense. But honestly, over the last couple of years, we've had very few issues. There's a couple that I can talk about here in a little bit, but I think there's things that you can do that mitigate that risk a lot. So yeah, and I think that we do a good job of mitigating them. So like we pay for all utilities, so residents aren't having to Venmo each other to pay for the internet this month or the electric or the water or whatever. That's just paid by us, and the shared supplies are even provided. So anything that's shared in the house, toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, trash bags, all of that stuff we just provide because you guys know how it is. Like if you share a bathroom with somebody and you buy the toilet paper and then they use the toilet paper, but then they don't buy the next toilet paper, you're buying it again. And you're like, man, what the heck, dude? So, I was in college. I know how it goes. And so, yeah, we knew that was an issue coming into this. So actually, we have a supply closet down there towards the kitchen. There's just a QR code. They scan it. Oh, I'm at this property. I'm running out of paper towels. Amazon delivers it 2 days later. Not a big deal. So easy solution to that one. Yeah, it costs a little bit. We probably spend $80 a month on toilet paper per house or whatever, but fixes a lot of issues. Yeah, we provide the shared furnishings. We label the fridge and pantry shelves. So bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, just gives them their own space. We have a cleaner come through on a monthly basis. So a lot of this is really modeled after the short-term rental strategy. Yeah, it's
smart. Get those headaches out of
you. Yeah,
paying for it,
that's all what it's
paying.
about. Yep. I think it gets rid of our headaches, and I think it lowers our vacancy. Honestly, like once folks do come in, they are more likely to stay longer. They're
less stress on them.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. Because if even if they do want to leave because like there's some issue, like no other rental is going to give them all of this. So if you do it right, it really is helpful. Yep, lawn maintenance is taken care of too. So I know a lot of folks that use this strategy. They're just like, hey, like you tenant, you're responsible for lawn, and I'll give you however much off. It probably doesn't get done as often as it should, and folks probably get frustrated about it. So we just pay someone for that. Oh, so this is the tenant story. So I forgot that was in there. It kind of shocked me. Yeah. Oh shit. So yeah. So actually, we live in a house hack still where we rent out, by the room there. And we had a tenant message us, a resident upstairs, and she shares a bathroom with, a dude. So it's like, okay, there might be some issues there. And she messages and like, hey, like I can't live in these conditions anymore. Like this dude leaves shit all over the toilet and like it's disgusting and all this. And so, I'm like, okay, I'll take care of it. So then I messaged the other guy. I'm like, hey, make sure you keep the place clean, whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, like, sorry, I'll take care of it. And then I'm like, let me just go walk upstairs and kind of see what's going on here. And I walk in the bathroom, and like, this was it. Like, you probably can't even see it.
A dot there.
Yeah, there's like 3 little specks. So you might deal with like some silliness. Like, none of this was worth the big complaint that it was, in my opinion. But I am a dude, so if anyone else has other opinions, like, feel free. But I think it's a little ridiculous. So.
It looks pretty.
Well, you're also a dude.
But I mean, I also know how to use a toilet brush. So.
No, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So.
Is that illegal if you say this house is for female or male?
Yeah, that would be illegal. Yeah. So our houses are totally co-ed. You can't discriminate based on gender. So.
Race, religion, creed.
Yep, none of that. You can't even like discriminate based on like, if they have children or not. So, but I mean, there's ways around some of this. Like, obviously, we don't want kids running around when there's like 5 professionals living here. So we just have like 1 occupant per room. So like that gets around it. But yeah, you can't discriminate based on sex. Okay, so treat your tenants awesome. Treat them like people. A lot of folks don't. So what you should not do, this ad came across my phone and kind of got in a tiffy about it. But yeah, it says company pad split. And so you can see here they're talking about, before pad split, awesome. You have a 4-bedroom house here. There's a living room, there's a kitchen, there's a dining room, great. And they're like, after pad split, you can make a ton of money. But you can see now they have no living room, they have no dining room. This master bedroom was split into 2 rooms that are like 7 by 7. This is honestly what most folks that hop into the strategy, this is what they see on social media. You have this house, turn it into this many rooms and like it'll cash flow great. Which is true, but you lose, community aspect. You do want folks to feel like a home and not like cows just like out on the farm making money for you. They do bring in money for you, but I encourage that you treat them with respect. So what that comes down to is really just buying a house with the right floor plan. Because where this gets folks into trouble is they turn a house that they already have into a co-living property, which can work, but honestly, most properties aren't set up well for it. Like, we look at 600 houses before we buy one, like historically. So like, it's a lot of floor plans you have to go through to find one that maximizes income and allows residents to have plenty of space to hang out if they have friends over, or spend time in the kitchen or whatever. Yeah, so definitely do treat your residents respectfully. Make sure you have community space. We make sure that we have a living room and a kitchen. And then, yeah, something we're starting to do is provide community events. So like pizza nights or whatever. Just do stuff like that to, treat them well.
Do you sponsor that?
Yeah. Yeah. So honestly, we haven't done it yet, but it's on our list to do like in the next couple of months. And I think it'll be a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to spend, $60 on pizzas. Like, hey guys, pizza will be at the house in 3 hours. Like, we can do it remotely, like no big deal. But I think it's going to get folks to meet their neighbors when otherwise they might be in their rooms and like never see them. And which honestly, I think will reduce our vacancy. Like, if you know who's next door and you guys become friends, you're going to stay much longer than if you're just like weaseling in your room.
Yeah, and also you have a chance to build a relationship as the owner, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With those tenants.
Yeah, that's true. So if we did honestly, I don't think we'll do in-person events like where I'll go. Maybe we will. I just like doing things remotely, but that would be cool though. You could go, like, if you have a couple of properties and whatever, you could go grill out with them and get to know them. And
but the tenants are still going to appreciate you for doing
yeah,
it for them.
right. Yeah. So I think that's something that could help.
What about a dining area? No.
Yeah. So as long as we have a spot like for a dining table, then we're good. I mean, when we walk around later, you'll see we actually are converting a full-on dining room, but we still have that area back there with the dining table. So as long as we have a space for dining, living room, kitchen, and like shared baths and all that kind of stuff, then we feel good about it. In reality, most residents, like 90% of them, come home, go to their room, order DoorDash, go get their DoorDash, and go back to their room. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they come home and play Xbox and whatever. But we still do want to have this space for the 10% that do want to come hang out, or for those pizza nights or whatever. So we want it to be there if they want it, although most folks, may not use it a whole lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
we talked about this already a little bit, but what's your monthly expense on each household, considering the maids and like?
Oh, yeah. So cleaning is like $100 a month, because they're not cleaning the whole house. They're cleaning the shared spaces, so it's like less than you would think. Mows are like $100 a month in the summer, like 50 every 2 weeks. The shared supplies and stuff, it's like $100 a month. So you're not spending a ton extra, like 300 extra. I mean, we pay for utilities, so if you're not used to doing that, that's like an extra 300. But the income that you get far outweighs it. Yeah.
How involved are your like current tenants in the vetting process for like new tenants?
Yeah, awesome question. So, like I said, I like to do everything remotely. When you start to get to scale, like 33 residents, I mean, it would be a lot if I had to go every time somebody wanted to tour the place. So first off, we have YouTube tours of every room, every property. So like probably half of our folks sign without ever seeing the place, which is great, especially for these military guys and gals coming from North Carolina or whatever. They can look at it remotely. But otherwise, we just send out an email to the whole house that says, hey, this person wants to tour. Is anyone available? If they sign a lease, you'll get $50 off next month's rent. So that's good for a few reasons. It kind of incentivizes them to talk about all the good aspects of the property because like they want $50, and yeah, it kind of gives them a situation to sort of feel each other out. Like the new person can feel out, oh, is this a good roommate that I could have, and vice versa. So yeah, we do like to get current residents to tour so they can kind of get that vibe. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about the strategy before I dive into numbers? Any other questions about how to do the strategy?
Can you talk about something about your rental application process?
Yeah.
The credit, the background check, the credit check. Is that allowed in Colorado?
Yep.
Regulations?
Yeah. So it's honestly no different than like a traditional long-term rental. We just basically have them fill out like a free form that says, hey, I'm interested. Here's what I think my credit score is, whatever. If it looks like they're going to pass, we'll tell them, hey, here's the actual application link that costs $35 and does the whole deal. If it looks like they're going to fail like immediately, I don't want to waste their money. I don't want to waste their time. So then we just say, hey, looks like you're not going to qualify. If you want to, we can still give you the application because we can't tell them they can't based on what they told us. But yeah, then they fill out the application. It's on a software, goes and does its background check and credit check, comes back to us, and if they meet our standards, then we move forward.
Do you ever make an exception if somebody's credit is not good enough and you charge a higher deposit?
So the only thing that we do like that, we don't make exceptions for credit because that just shows that they're not good at paying certain things.
600?
We require 550. So
that's pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that does. That is kind of like the tenant pool that we're talking about with like the lower income folks, but it's not like bombed, like they just went into foreclosure, or they just went bankrupt or something like that. So we require 550. If they don't make enough income, we'll allow a cosigner, so we can get around it that way. And then if they don't have a lot of rental references, then we'll just charge a higher security deposit since they're more risky.
Is that legal?
Mm-hmm.
I heard it's not legal since last year.
So the way that we do it is based on, there's a limit, like you can't charge more than some amount, but there's no reason that you can't make it lower. So like if someone has 3 rental references, we'll make it a half month of rent because they're not risky. If they only have 1 or 2 or whatever, then it can be 1 month. So there is some limit now, like you can't go over 2x or 1.5x or something, but there's nothing that says you can't charge them $1. Like if they're not risky, I don't want to take a bunch of their money and hold it.
What about a sex offender?
It's a good question. I hope that comes back on the criminal check or the background check, but honestly, I don't know.
I don't think they show. They just tell you.
Yeah, I know we can go look it up. If it doesn't show on the official checks, then it's something we should do manually that we don't do. Honestly, I just figured it would come back on the criminal check.
What about pets?
No pets. Yep. So that can get sticky too, right?
Your dog bit my cat.
Well,
not even that. Just I'm dealing. I had to replace carpet because of ferrets.
Yeah.
So it's not fun.
Yeah. I mean, it can get sticky, like denying someone, like if they have an ESA or whatever, right? That can get kind of tough. I think we found a way around it. There's, that's what I find ways around lots of things. So there's a clause in, I think it was either in HUD or FHA or like one of these housing type government, deals, and like one of their documents that says you can deny ESA or service animal or whatever if it disrupts your normal business activities. And in this case, we're renting to a bunch of folks who didn't sign up to live with a pet. Maybe they have allergies and they signed up assuming there was no pet. Like you're sharing common spaces. So I think that does disrupt our like daily business flow or however it's worded. So yeah, that's our plan if anyone ever sues us.
sometimes they bring pets later.
That's true. So we find that.
You tell you.
Yep. So whenever we contact previous landlords, we ask them if they had pets. So we've come across that a couple times. They're like, oh yeah, they do. Then I message the person. They're like, yeah, but it's an ESA, so I didn't think it mattered. You know. So, but we find out when we ask the previous landlord.
You'll be in there for 6 months. They bring a cat in.
Could happen. Has not happened. If it did, you know, our lease says no pets. If it was ESA at that point, I guess I would provide that same explanation I said earlier. But yeah, that's how we would find it though.
Do you have certain ratio for like how many bathrooms, how many bedroom, and also the laundry room only one? If you have 10 people share one washer dryer counter.
Yeah, so we haven't had 10 people. This house will be the most. It's 8 people is what's going to be here. We have 5, 6, 7, 7 right now as our houses. We haven't had an issue with the laundry room yet. Bathroom deal, we try to have less than 4 people to a bath. So like 2 people, 3 people, like that tends to be fine. But we try not to go over 4. Yeah. All right.
You talk. Oh, last question.
Yeah, you're good.
You mentioned about the DoorDash thing. I can imagine that's a lot of trash. How many trash cans can?
Yeah, so we have 2 trash cans, and that tends to work. Another pro tip though, if you sign up with Infinite Disposal, right? 'Cause there's multiple trash companies here in town. They can do roll off for you. So like we don't have to tell our tenants Tuesday's trash day. Take the cans down to the road. We pay an extra $10 a quarter or something, and Infinite comes up and grabs it from the house and pulls it down. So now no one has to remember that because somebody would definitely. Yeah.
I haven't finished. Good.
Yep. Cool. All right. Number stuff. So this property here, we bought it as a 3-bed, 3.5 bath. We're turning it into an 8-4, and I'll walk you guys all around after this, and you can kind of see how that remodel is going. It's about 3,000 square feet, so it's a big house with only 3 bedrooms. So that's kind of usually what we target because it's not super competitive for most families. If they're looking for a 3,000 square foot house, they probably want 4 or 5, whatever beds for all their kids. 1983 build, and we bought it for $472. Like a month and a half ago. So pretty fresh. Okay, so location. So these blue pucks here are properties that we already own, just to give you an idea of kind of where the strategy, where we know it works. So these stars here are places that we want to be close to. So we want to be close to either Peterson, Strever, Fort Carson. We haven't bought around UCCS or UC Health yet, but I would consider buying there as well. But yeah, mostly we're around Peterson, except for the one near Fort Carson. It's like we're a 12-minute drive from Peterson, tends to attract a lot of military folks. We had a guy move in yesterday. I don't know if he's here right now. I don't know if he's angry with us. But yeah, he works at Peterson. So our other house is mostly Peterson. Okay, so remodel before. I just put one picture here because this part has been worked on. So when we go look at it and it's mostly done, this is what it used to look like before. But this is where you guys walked in. This is, one of the living rooms for the house, and then there's the dining room back there. That's right over there. So that's what it looked like before. But I'll show you guys kind of the progress here in a second. So the 2 ways that you can buy properties, right? You can buy them, or the 2 ones that I want to talk about here. You could buy them purely as an investment, which is what we did, or you could buy them as a house hack, which I know a lot of people here are kind of interested in. So I wanted to run that scenario also, but really we bought it as just a pure investment property that we never lived in. So bought it for $472. Interest rate was 7.99. This was 45 days ago. Down payment, we put 25% as an investment. You could put 5% down if it was a house hack. That's how I ran it. Closing costs, 12 to 14 grand, depending on the strategy is what I estimated. Startup costs, the remodel is like $25K. $5K for furnishings, and then we throw like a 20% buffer on there just to kind of be safe. So as an investment, this one was 170 grand all in. And then as a house hack, this one would be like 78 grand all in, which is more than your typical house hack. Our house hacks were like 20 to 40 grand. And it's really just because we're doing a pretty big remodel here. But the strategy does work as a house hack with less down. Like Edgar bought basically 0 down with VA. How expensive is your remodel?
4 to 5K.
Yeah, like 4,000. So it's doable with less down. But this one, because of the bigger remodel, would cost like 78. Okay, so this is our last slide here talking about the numbers, and then we'll wrap up before we walk around the property. But basically, as an investment, I like to kind of break our returns down into 4 different pieces. So I think in real estate, you make money from cash flow. You make money from appreciation, right? Your property going up in value over time, and because maybe you did something to the property to force it. Loan pay down, your tenants are paying your mortgage down. That is absolutely a return to you. In 30 years, you own this property and you didn't pay the rent, or you didn't pay for the mortgage, the tenants did. So you own a house free and clear at the end of 30 years. That's absolutely a return. And then tax benefits. So for this one, we're looking at like a $50,000 return in year 1 when you add all of those up for that $170,000 investment. So that's like $26,000 a year is what we're going to cash flow on this once we're fully filled up. That's like a 15% cash on cash. So much higher than you can get with a lot of other strategies these days. Appreciation, we think we're going to get like $22,000. That's like 4% per year, 4% appreciation, which is a 13% return on investment. No loan pay down because we're actually interest only, but that's a whole different discussion we can talk about sometime. And then there's some tax benefits due to depreciation. So to compare it here, as a house hack, you would cash flow, so you would put about 78 in, you would make like 12 grand a year, so much less than the 26,000 a year, but your return is actually better. Your return on investment is 15.2% cash on cash, just because, you're making less, but you put a lot less into the property. So your dollars that are in the property are working a lot harder for you, is kind of the way that I like to think about that. Your appreciation is the same as above, but your return on it's a lot better. You do have loan pay down, because conventional loan, you're paying principal, and then you have tax benefits as well. So high level, the comparison of these two. As an investment, it makes 50 grand a year. That's a 30% return in the first year. The house hack option, you make less, you make 40 grand in the first year, but your return is like 52%. So ridiculous, just because you put so little into the property. You only put 78 instead of 170.
Are you factoring that with just one room being used for your own?
Great question. So in this house hack scenario, this will be like after you move out.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you did occupy a room, you could take like 8 grand off of this. So you'd still make like 3 grand for the year, like living for free.
So that's not numbers with owner occupants. It is the year after.
Basically, yeah, if you want to think about it that way, yep. Or it's like as if you were paying rent, or how, yeah. Any number questions? I know that's a lot of numbers.
Yeah. So on the last slide, it looked
Yes.
like you did a 10-year arm for the mortgage.
Yeah, it's not exactly. It's 10-year interest only, and then it's still 30-year fixed, the way that we did it, but it's 10 years interest only, and then the next 20 are amortized over 20. So it just really lowers our payment by like $600 in the first 10 years, basically. You can get creative when you buy them as investments. There's more creative products. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, yep. If you guys want to stay in touch, here's my Instagram. I post like 3 to 4 videos and pictures a week, all about co-living and the education piece of it. If you guys want to learn more, and just like project updates and stuff like that. So feel free to follow.
Question for you. Where do you find those people?
Yep. Biggest is Facebook Marketplace and Zillow. Yeah.
I have a question as well.
Yeah.
Do you have like a target audience that you reach for? Are you talking about the military bases and whatnot?
Yeah. So, I mean, the ad is generic. I mean, we say, I think this might not even be legal anymore, but we say that we're close to Peterson or Fort Carson or whatever, which is kind of sticky these days. But really the way that we target them is by just buying close to the areas that we want our tenants, close to the base. Yeah.
You can't advertise location?
No, because if it's technically discrimination because you're shooting for a certain job type or something like that. I don't know exactly how it's worded, but I've heard that can be like gray anyway. Yeah.
From close to launch, how long does it take you? If you close on the property, launch it.
Yeah. So remodel can vary. This one, it's going to be like 3 months. To get them filled up with tenants, usually like 2.5 months probably. So there's kind of a slog there. And then once they're filled up, turnovers aren't as bad. But like I said, finding 7 people immediately, it's like, it takes a little while. Yeah.
How many do you plan on buying this year?
We're under contract on another one right now that we went under contract a week ago. We're trying to get to 12 properties by the end of the year. So it'll be a stretch, but if we get this one, we'll be at 6.
You gonna keep it this zip code or you gonna spread out?
Nope, different zip codes are fine as long as we're like within a 15-minute drive to one of the bases. Then we're cool with that.
Capital investors, you have people that have put.
Yeah, so we didn't put 170 grand in. Somebody brought 100 and somebody brought 70. That's how we're doing it these days. And they get half the returns, and then we, do the boots on the ground type stuff. All right, cool. Well, feel free to grab another drink, and then I'll start walking you guys around and kind of talk about the remodel.